Hey everyone, I'm back. I wanted to get a good bit of the deck text up, how my decks are currently being run. So that is what this is. I wanted, so I have Azami, Krenko, Sidisi, Vendilion Clique, Wydwen, and two Yisan decks. So I'll talk about the two Yisan decks last. So I have Krenko is pretty straightforward. It's red goblins. My curve it goes up to about 4 to 5. Reforge is like the 5 drops. I rarely pay the mana for them. Chancellor of the Forge doesn't really count. He's mostly in there just because I need another slot. I don't have a lot of red cards on MTGO. The good rocks in here I should add. I do have Thorn of Amethyst. Thorn. No, that's Sword of the Animist. I need a Thorn of Amethyst in this deck as well because it's an almost entirely creature-based deck. So this deck definitely has room to update. I got Thorn since I last played this. So it's pretty straightforward goblins. Lots of 1-drops, haste effects, some token producers, bombardment, lookout, the good things that I can do with recruiter, and then ringleader to flip over for recruiter says put ringleader on top of your deck followed by 4 goblins, play ringleader, draw 4 goblins. So pretty cool stuff. I decided to go with a Brightstone Ritual just because it's a 1 mana ritual and it almost always makes 3 or 4 mana. So in this deck, it's usually better than Dark Ritual, a red Dark Ritual would be. Other than that, the deck's a lot of fun to play, and I might be playing this. You see how I've listed as multiplayer, because this deck actually does pretty well for multiplayer. Martin Stromgold is one of my favorite legendary creatures in Mono Red, which is whenever he attacks, other attacking creatures get +1 for each attacking creature other than him. So if he attacks with a team of 10 others, all other creatures get +10. So he never counts himself, and he doesn't pump himself. And whenever he blocks, each blocking creature gets +1 for the same thing. So if he blocks with 10 others, each of those other 10 get +10/+10. So Martin never counts himself and never buffs himself, but everything else gets buffs for everything else. So he's very good, and the other version of him is, I believe it's a 3-drop, Shared Animosity. Whenever a creature you control attacks, gives +1/+0 for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. So I attack with 11 goblins, all of them get +10/+10, +10/+0, which Shared Animosity or Martin are almost always how this deck wins out of nowhere. In addition to Skirk Fire Marshal, stacking all of the abilities, as long as they're at a lesser life than I am, which usually happens playing Mono Red, I can stack Skirk Fire Marshal by holding control, tap 5 goblins, while retaining priority, tap another 5 goblins, while retaining priority, tap another 5 goblins, then I have 30 damage on the stack. If I'm above 30, everyone else is beneath 30. There's nothing they can do. I have 3 triggers of 10 damage on the stack, and at that point, they can't interrupt me, so to speak. So they need to either deal damage to put me beneath 30 or somehow counter one of the abilities. So Skirk Fire Marshal's in there, not because of the Wrath effect. It's counterintuitive to destroy my own field, but Skirk Fire Marshal just auto wins the game without needing haste, which is what really merits the inclusion above everything else. I'm only playing basic mountains. There's my art, John Avon, 7th edition, because I don't want to play the snow mountains and the extra planar lens because I don't want to buy snow mountains on MTGO. So this is that deck, and I'm beneath 5 minutes, which was what I said I wanted to do for each deck to myself. So Sidisi, this is my current Sidisi list. I'm going to sort that by converted mana cost. So the lands are probably the most interesting part of this deck. So I'm playing 2 islands, 3 swamps, and 7 forests. Mostly because greens, you'll see as, let me sort by color. Green is more relevant than anything else in this deck. I've cut the Necrotic Ooze combo just because it's too click intensive on MTGO. I decided to include the extra turn spells instead. I feel like they'll be good with Sidisi because they're always more than an explore in a deck like this if I'm in any way ahead. Play 2 equipments, the sword, the untapped sword, and skull clamp. I don't know the fetch lands to go with Deathrite, but most of the time I'm milling lands, so it's okay. I'm playing a lot of the ETB tap lands. I have the temples, the non-green-black temple. I have Opulent Palace. I have all of the pain lands for the colors. I want to get the fast lands from Scars Block and Kaladesh. I think they'll be good additions to it. I think I have one of them. I have Darkslick Shores. So I'm missing the other 2. Botanical Gardens and what's the other one? Black-green, Marsh, I believe. Something Marsh. So this is the deck. I really like being able to Green Sun Zenith for deranged hermit. It's won me a bunch of games. Standstill's amazing in Sidisi because I can just keep accruing value, and they're forced to kill the standstill. In my previous upload, you saw how good Hermit Druid is. Even though I'm not playing Hermit Druid combo, I am playing basics. But Hermit Druid is an army in a can when I have Sidisi in play. Tons of mana dorks. Most of the deck wants to get Sidisi on turn 3 instead of turn 4. And if I can get it turn 2 because of Mana Crypt or Soul Ring, that's fantastic. But those are the only ways to get Sidisi out on turn 2. Turn 3 is perfectly fine, though. I'm playing some of the good reanimate effects. Victimize, reanimate itself, Vamp. I do not own a Demonic Tutor on MTGO, and Diabolic Intent, which is the sacrifice creature Demonic Tutor, is something like 9 tickets right now, and I'm not going to pay 9 tickets for the deck. Dread Return is probably one of my MVP spells, because I can mill it with Sidisi and still have it as a reanimation effect. Fate Stitcher I've been happy with. It's currently the first one on the chopping block, I think, if I need to make an addition to the deck that I didn't think was performing so far. I haven't actually gotten to resolve Necrologia so far, so I'm still testing that out. We'll see how it goes. I saw it in a bunch of lists online. So I think it might be good as a black draw 7, because it's a 5 mana refill my hand. I don't care if I discard some, but I figured Necrologia might be a cool inclusion in the deck that I can test out. So we'll see. That would be the second card on the chopping block if I don't like how it goes. Also, it'd be very good if I have some turn 10 mana, which isn't unheard of if I have a Bloom Tender in play. Where's my Bloom Tender? There it is. If I have Bloom Tender in play, there's a distinct possibility I can take an extra turn and then Necrologia in my end step as well. Keep in mind, when you use Necrologia, you do need to set a stop in your own end step on your turn progression. Otherwise, you will pass priority through your end step and you won't be able to use it. So this is Sidisi as it currently stands. I added Remora and the Capture and the Temporal. That was the third card that I added. I forgot that I had picked up a Remora earlier, and I've added to Vendilion Clique as well, which is what we're going to now. So Vendilion Clique is very sparse on the non-basics. Cataract, Colosseum, because the life loss doesn't matter. It's a draw 3, though. And those are my non-basics: Talaria, Thawing Strip, Seat, Riptide, Reliquary Tower, and Nykthos. So a bunch of things that can be tutored for with Trinket Mage, Vault, Crypt, Ring, Top, Relic, Needle, Chalice, and Map. Very good. So we have Annul, Curfew, Remora, Tutor, Ponder, Pongify, Preordain, Rapid Hybridization, Spell Pierce, Steel Sabotage, Vapor Snag. So the good one-drop counter spells. I've decided against Mental Misstep. It's a couple tickets on MTGO. I don't want to buy it, and I don't think it contributes that much to the deck. I'm not dedicated combo, which is where I like Mental Misstep a lot more, in something like a Tazri Food Chain list. So Vendilion Clique is a tempo build, so Winter Orb is amazing. I've considered Null Rod, but I don't think it's good in this kind of deck because I rely so much on artifacts like Gilded Lotus, Sol Ring, Mana Crypt, Everflowing Chalice. So I don't think Null Rod's where this deck wants to be. That said, the stacks effects are pretty good. I've considered Static Orb as well, in addition to Winter Orb, because I can just try to leave mana open and use Static Orb to untap Clique in a single land, and my opponent, if I can stop one good spell, that'll probably end the game. So Static Orb might be the first pickup that I need for this deck. I've added Prohibit into the deck as well. I want to test that out, which is a counter 2 or less, kick, counter 4 or less. So you're either spending 2 or 4 mana to counter something that's 2 or 4 mana. Oops, sorry, that's miscalc. The rest of the instants are pretty straightforward. Merchant Scrolls, one of the very few non-instants. Legacy Zolor, Standstill is almost always a draw 3, because I have a clock they don't. Fabricate, Blast, Study I added because it's a tax effect. I'm treating it as a 3 mana, your opponents pay 1 more for their spell effect, which is fine by me. If that's what they have to do to keep me from drawing cards, I don't mind being in that position when I have Vendilion Clique. So I'm okay with this being just a tax effect, and when you evaluate Ristic Study on that, you don't mind it. Because if I'm playing it as just a tax effect and they don't, they're giving me cards, which is even better. But if they're only paying 1 more mana for all of their spells, I'm in a great position anyway. Because it balances out, it gives me effectively an extra turn's worth of tempo, and that's really where Vendilion Clique wants to be. Or 2 turns worth if they're trying to play more than 1 spell in a turn, which is amazing. Sage's Dousing doesn't get cut because I have Wizard, it's a draw 3, and it only costs a single blue to play, which is actually really nice for a 3-mana counterspell. Foff, Glenandra, Dismiss, Rewind, Sower, Ingenuity because it's instant speed draw, Confluence, same reason, Tezzeret because it gets Orb, Future Sight because it's amazing, Gilded Lotus, it's an amazing... You can't underestimate Gilded Lotus. There's nothing I can say that can do Gilded Lotus as much justice as it deserves. It is an amazing ability to have a Black Lotus every single turn. Once this is resolved, it's insane to have 3 colored mana from a single rock. It's stunning. Flash of Insight and Condescend. Flash of Insight's a little counterintuitive with my Runechanter's Pike, but I almost always play it as a draw 1, because it's a single card that draws me 2 cards over the course of a couple turns, and it only costs me 5 mana to do so split. So it's basically a Think Twice that I can look at more than 1 card. But instead of Think Twice, it's 3 mana first and then 2 mana plus some cards from my yard, which I don't care about, instead of 2 mana and then 3 mana. So I like Flash of Insight in the deck instead of Think Twice, and Condescend because it's a good counterspell. So this is my current Vendilion Clique, and I've done 3 decks, and it's only 11 minutes in. That's fantastic. Alright, so this is Wydwen. And Wydwen is probably my least updated deck at the moment, next to Krenko. I'm going to skip Azami just because I don't like the Azami deck currently. So I have Snow-Covered Islands and Swamps in this deck. And the reason I added them, I actually can't remember. I think they were just in my pile of what I had, of what I was picking up. Do I have anything that Snow Matters? There might have been something that Snow Matters original. Oh, I remember. I have Mouth of Ronom, which is deal damage to target creature, which, to include this, I definitely had to play the Snow Basics for no loss of value. So that's fine with me. But Mouth of Ronom is a very good land in a deck like Wydwen, which is also a tempo build. You'll see a lot of the same similarities between this and Vendilion Clique. Key differences: I have Duress Vampiric Tutor, Go for the Throat. I don't even have the Charcoal Diamond in here. Toxic Deluge, Dystopia, which has won me so many games. Cumulative Upkeep, pay a life. Beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a green or white permanent. Doesn't affect me at all, but this can just wreck green-white players, or like white-blue players that are trying to keep like Grand Arbiter around. For 3 mana, I can kill 2, 3, sometimes 4 things. I don't care about the life loss. I'm going to win the game if I'm killing that many things with Dystopia. Ashiok, amazing Planeswalker, incredible pressure, sometimes comes down to turn 2 off something like a Crypt or a Ring, and can just take over the game because it's a threat all in itself. It's tempo, it's pressure, it's a threat. They can't deal with it effectively in the same way that they have to deal with creature kills. They have to play aggro if they're playing control. Ashiok's just an amazing Planeswalker to have it in any blue-black deck, and I would highly advocate for it. Sword of Feast and Famine and Vedalken Shackles, which I should add to Vendilion Clique. I forgot that I picked up Shackles. Do I have Shackles in here? I do not. I should add Shackles to that. See, like I said, I pick up stuff for decks every now and then, and I forget to update my previous ones. So Shackles should be in Vendilion Clique, but it's a little bit harder to use in here, but just removing blockers out of the way for Wydwen to get in is pretty good. Notion Thief, an amazing magic card. And then basically the rest of the blue package is the same as Clique, Confluence, Murderous Cut, Delve. I mostly play it because of the Delve ability. It's a 1-mana kill spell. And then Far and Away is pretty cool. I can bounce a creature and make them sack a creature. And keep in mind, when you fuse it, it does go in that order. You return a creature to its owner's hand, and then target player sacrifices a creature if you fuse them. So it gets 2 things out of the way for Vendilion Clique. I'll usually bounce the thing that I care least about and make them sack the thing that matters more if I have the option. Amnesia is just, if you resolve this against them with an empty board, you almost always auto-win because you leave them with no non-lands. And then they have a board full of lands and a handful of lands. It's amazing if you end of turn Cyclonic Rift, untap Amnesia them, and just rip their entire board apart that way. Dig Through Time, same reason. I'm playing a ton of little tiny things that end up in the yard. Wydwen plays a bit more of a control game compared to Vendilion Clique, so I can play some of these top-end spells without really losing too much value on them. And you'll see that the deck is more set up to build into a top-end. I'm not playing Future Sight because triple blue is actually kind of hard for the deck. You usually have 2 and 2 about, so Future Sight didn't make the cut. Amnesia made it just because If Amnesia resolves, you are winning. Even if they reveal nothing that gets discarded and they just have lands in the hand, you're in an amazing position because they just have lands in their hand. Future Sight needs at least a turn to have value. Amnesia doesn't. It just has to resolve, which is why I made the concession that it's going to be the triple blue spell in the deck. I don't want to play more than one in the deck. Muddle the Mixture to get a bunch of... What do we have in here? Rocks, usually get Runechanter's Pike, get a kill spell, get a drain, get a standstill. Standstill is probably the best target in here. I could play Winter Orb in the deck, but I don't know. I need to test it a little bit if I'm going to add the Winter Orb in. So this is how the deck currently looks. Cataract, Bog, Estuary, which is the check land. No, the reveal land. Tower, Darkslick. This is where I picked the Darkslick up for. It was picked up for this deck initially. Gain life lands, storage land, check land, fetch land, or the cheap fetches. Mishra's Factory because it's pressure for planeswalkers that they can't counter. Riptide, River of Tears. So all of the budget blue-black duels. Temple, Shock, Battleland, Fetch It, Tutor, Painland, Urborg because it's a good land and I wanted to have one in my collection. And the Shock actually wasn't too bad on MTGO. So this is Wydwen the Biting Gale. And now let's go to the two Yisan decks, and there's only, I think, 2 cards difference between them. So this is the current build that I'll play if I'm comfortable with, if I don't want to play the testing version, then I just want to play the deck that I know and love. And it's most of what you've seen. Quest of Renewal, I've been back and forth about. I don't know if I like it yet. In the games that I've gotten it, I think it's pretty good. But it almost feels a little bit win more. I'm not sure, so I'm still testing Quest for Renewal. I think it's cut in the other list, actually. Other than that, the deck's very good. I've realized more often than not, I can just win games by going turn 1, anything. It's usually Quirion Ranger, or sorry, Tutor 1, Quirion Ranger. Tutor 2, Priest of Titania. Tutor 3, Fierce Empath. That means... So then I untap on turn 4 or on turn 5 after I've tutored for 3, and then I have Fierce Empath. I think turn 5. Yeah, I have Fierce Empath, Quirion Ranger, and Priest of Titania. Priest taps for 3. Quirion Ranger untaps. It taps for 3, and then so now I have 6 floating, and I had at least 1 forest. So then I play another forest. That's 8, and Fierce Empath, of course, tutor for Terastodon. So the math works out beautifully that if I have a single land, if I go Land Crypt Yisan, or I have turn 2 Yisan, let's say. Turn 3, get 1. Turn 4, get 2. Turn 5, get 3. Turn 6, is resolving Terastodon, killing their mana. Terastodon, most people will just scoop to Terastodon, and if they don't, they'll scoop within 2 turns once they realize that I'm going to go get Temur Sabertooth, bounce my Terastodon, replay my Terastodon, and kill more of their things. And then I can get Deranged Hermit at 5, and my plan will just be to block elephants with squirrels, and Deranged Hermit to trade off the elephants, and it doesn't matter to me. Because then I can Temur Sabertooth, bounce the Deranged Hermit, so I block squirrel, block squirrel, block squirrel, block squirrel, kill 2 of the elephants, kill 1 Terastodon, block 1 with Deranged Hermit, and bounce Deranged Hermit in response. The game will end at that point. Once they see Deranged Hermit, I've never had someone not scoop after I've Terastodon their things twice and used Deranged Hermit to start killing off their elephants. The game's ending. And if they don't attack into the Deranged Hermit, I go and get Kamal and just auto-win the game there. So, very fun deck to play. And let me jump to the other version. So, I'll give you a sec, see if you can see the differences between it. Like I said, I'm not playing the quest at 2. I'm playing... What do we got? Root Maze. Artifacts and lands enter the battlefield tapped. Well, that's pretty good, especially if my opponent plays like Mana Vault. Even though I'm playing it. Root Maze seems to be... it might be a good enchantment to include. I'm still testing it. I think it's going to make the cut. It just does so much work. Let me just jump back to the other one. I don't actually remember. I think there's 2 differences. That was 1 cut. Okay, Karametra, Beast Within Cultivate. I might cut Cultivate in the coming times. Preserver, Revoker, Sphere, Thorn, Winter Orb. I'm not sure what the other cut is, what the other card was. Maybe it's just the one. So this is my current Yisan list. Standard lands. Oh, Gemstone Caverns. That's the other card I included. Sorry about that. I'm looking all up here, and I forget that it was a land. And that was just a cut of forest for Gemstone Caverns, which is, if I'm on the draw, it means that I could have potentially turn 1 Yisan, even if I have Soul Ring. So I wanted to test it out a little bit. I feel it might be worth including, and if not, it's just one more non-green source, which I'm not terribly worried about in the deck. The deck has, with the exception 1, 2, 3, 4, 5... So 32 of my 37 lands are green sources. So I think it's alright, an alright inclusion, and I'm fine with it. I don't mind it at all. We'll have to test it a little bit. I actually haven't gotten any games with it yet. No, not true. I've gotten one with it, but I was on the play, so I didn't actually get to use its ability, and it was just a regular land for me. Null Rod will sometimes auto-win games for me, along with Winter Orb. I've gotten more games off Umbral Mantle as well. Unfortunately, the replays were bugged. I had some very cool games with Umbral Mantle and Karametra's Acolyte. I was tapping for like 10 mana at a time, and then they realized that I have a ton of mana, and I used Yisan up to 5 to get Seedborn Muse. To get Seedborn Muse. And then, or no, Whisperwood Elemental, sorry. Then use Quirion Ranger, untapped Yisan, got Kamal, and dumped a ton of the mana into it, and I think attacked him with like a 70-70 Karametra's Acolyte or something. It was a fun game. I really enjoyed it. But Umbral Mantle seems to be very good in the deck, and I know I'm playing a lot of rocks that have activated abilities. Crypt Vault, Clamp Ring, Greaves, Umbral Mantle. That all get shut down by Null Rod, but Null Rod just sometimes wins games by itself, so there's no reason not to include it. And I have other ways to get haste with the Concordant Crossroads. So this is the other version of the deck currently, and the real test is Root Maze. One of the guys at my local shop was playing it in his Yisan build. I wanted to test it out a little bit before I decided to make it the default inclusion. And I think it actually might be better than Quest for Renewal, but we'll have to see. I've only gotten 2 or 3 games where I actually drew the Root Maze and played it in the first couple turns. I've had a couple games where I draw it after like Regal Force, and I'd play it for Devotion at that point because I have a Nykthos in play, or something or other. So at that point it doesn't matter. The Root Maze isn't doing any work. I want to get more games where I test it on turn 1, 2. So we'll have to see. I really enjoyed playing the Yisan deck. I know I have a ton of gameplays for Yisan on my channel. I'm going to try and include some Vendilion Clique as well. So, without further ado, that's going to be the end of this video. I'll real quick pull up my 2 Pauper decks that I play. I'm not going to talk about them, but I've had a few people message me, ask if I play Pauper. You're welcome to add me on MTGO if you want to play some Pauper. So, this is my Mystical Teachings build. And it's generic blue-black control, win with Evankar's Justice, Gurmag Angler, or Curse of the Bloody Tome. Sorry, I said Tomb. Curse of the Bloody Tome. And then my other deck is a blue-white Acid Trip deck, which is utilizes the ability of Reality Acid, which is Vanishing 3 when it leaves the battlefield, enchanted permanents, controller sacrifices it, and Core Skyfisher, which ETBs, I bounce my own permanent, so I can bounce my Reality Acid. Dreamstalker, which is the same effect. Momentary Blink to blink one of those 2 effects. So Reality Acid can hit lands, and I'll start destroying lands at a certain point in the game. And what I like about this deck is almost every single card replaces itself. Spreading Seas draws a card. Dreamstalker puts a card back in my hand. Momentary Blink is almost always getting value because I'm blinking Seagate Oracle or Muldrifter or Core Skyfisher. Journey to Nowhere, at least it's 1-for-1. Preordain replaces itself. Heliod's Pilgrim replaces itself. Seagate Oracle replaces itself. Muldrifter draws me 2 cards instead of 1. So this is definitely an amazing deck to play if you want to play control that isn't counterspell control, which is what I've enjoyed doing. Sideboard, Circles, Holy Lights, which just I've had people scoop to Holy Lights. I've played a couple Thalid decks that I resolve Holy Light, and they just can't come back from it. Sanctifiers, because I can bounce them with Skyfishers and Dreamstalkers, re-get their abilities. Stormgeist is in there for the Delver matchup. 2 counterspells, 2 dispels for the heavier control matchup. Dispels probably the better counterspell. 2 relics for the graveyards, and a Serrated Arrows. I'm fine with 2 relics. I have Seagate Oracles, Muldrifters, and Spreading Seas that all draw me cards. So only 2 is alright. And a second Serrated Arrows. And Serrated Arrows is very good because I can bounce it with Core Skyfisher or Dreamstalker. So you'll see, even though it only has 3 counters on it, and I only get 3 uses, I can usually get more than 3 uses out of a single Serrated Arrows, which makes the card so much better. So this is Reality Acid. I've been enjoying this one a lot more. It's, like I said, it's control without counterspells, and that's a fun archetype to play. So those are the decks. 25 minutes, and I went through 7 decks, it looks like. 8 decks, actually. So let me know in the comments down below which one you think is your favorite. I'll talk about a zombie later, I think. I'm still tweaking that deck a lot. It's nowhere near close to being ready for videos. The rest of them are pretty close. I need to edit Vendilion Clique some. Wydwen needs some editing. Krenko needs some editing. So let me know in the comments which you think is your favorite, which one you want to see some more gameplays of. I'm going to try to get some multiplayer games of Krenko and Yisan, or Krenko and maybe Sidisi. Yeah, Krenko is Sidisi. Sidisi is probably the other best multiplayer one. And I'm going to try to get some 1v1 Vendilion Clique games in as well. I will see you all in the next one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video.